the positive path to awakening. Awakening to who you truly are. Number one is, please remember that awakening is often subtle. Number two, the hard part is embodying the awakening, because we have such a big resisting and temptation to go back to sleep. And number three is, awakening is not enlightenment, total liberation, but awakening is getting your foot in the door of enlightenment. So, meaning awakening is a necessary but not sufficient condition for enlightenment. Ponder that for a moment. No need to try to understand that. Simply allow that to rest and lock in. So who and what are you? You are awareness itself, or even that which is aware of consciousness. You are not a being that has awareness. This is a common misconception. You are the act of the perception or the perceiving itself. You are not the contents of the mind. You are not anything that can be perceived on the screen of the mind. No, you are not this body. You are not your name, your human, or even your soul. There is no perceiver. There is no being that has awareness or consciousness. This might trigger you. Instead, the act of perception, the perceiving, is the truth of you. You are the ability to perceive itself. You are not the content of the awareness or perception. You are not the observer. You are not, or you are rather the act of perceiving without an object attached to that. So awareness, perceiving, conscious existence. The mind links nouns to make sense of things easier, but it also has to do with the conditioning and the belief systems. It is something that should be agreed to be re-believed. Language limits the existence of verbs without nouns or subjects. Thus, this knowing transcends understanding and language. The perceiving cannot be good or bad. Only the concept of the perception can be labeled or judged as such. Transcending duality takes you from the observer to the perceiving. There is and can only be perceiving and awareness. The consciousness that is your perceiving is the same as awareness of the perceiving. The difference then comes in, it comes into the distortion and the direct environment and how the awareness identifies with it. It can simply perceive the contents on the screen of the mind. It can feel the sensations through the vehicle of the body, or it can feed the belief system of the thought by fueling it more and more emotions and feelings. This is what I like to call an immersive experience. Now, duality consists of everything that can be perceived on the screen of the mind. Whereas unity or non-duality is the perception itself. So consider how you have been focusing or using your awareness. Because attention is awareness directed at a particular thought, feeling, emotion, situation, or circumstance. It is likely, very, very likely, that your attention has been locked into the screen of the mind and its various thoughts, drives, emotions, feelings. And it has probably over-identified with that screen and what appears there. Very few have the awareness that it is possible to focus your awareness on anything else. It's almost like a fish living in water. It knows nothing but water. A fish probably doesn't even perceive the water it lives in. It is just accepted as it is the most obvious thing. Somehow, it is the most obvious thing that we fail to notice because it's consistent. Look at the magical mirror. Looking at that which is looking back. Use this magical mirror as a direct to your attention onto attention or awareness itself. You are tuning perception back in onto itself and perceiving the perceiving. This is the awakening. It is not the character or the me that awakens. It is the awakefulness itself or the spirit that awakens to the identification of me or ego. Meditation, when used properly, can be a really powerful practice to pierce through these compelling illusions created by the mind, which is blocking you from seeing the truth of your being. So false meditation can never penetrate this false lie. The root of suffering is identification with the false I. If I think that I am Carla alone, I have given away my power to this false I. Are you here to serve the false I? It is directly associated with suffering. The less you identify with the false I, the less suffering, stress, contradiction, worry, all of this will start dissolving. This does not mean that you remove yourself and isolate yourself from this beautiful Leela. This is just the name that Hindus give the illusion of play. So experiencing it through a truthful relationship is what, in my bias, is freedom. Instead, you will experience more joy, more fulfillment, more contentment, peace, bliss, expansion. Now, what really happens when consciousness or awareness has an experience? The capacity to perceive is the essence of consciousness. By contrast, the ego, the false I, is the means by which consciousness or awareness feeds the physical world of duality. So a lamp, the light itself is the awareness, and the light bulb is the false I. Consciousness cannot change the awareness of what it is projecting, but it can distort the interface in which it is projecting onto. So understanding the personality is extremely useful. But it does tell you nothing about the true self, the true you with a capital Y. So understanding personality forms an awareness that allows you to use the personality as you interface to physical reality. But without the true you, awareness means nothing. So they are merely an interface between the world and the real you, awareness, conscious existence. You are the seer, the seeing what he or she truly is. And in that way, what the seer sees and looks at is also truth, because they understand what they truly are. You are the awareness, having a perceiving or an experience facilitated through a biological mind-body complex as an organism. Isn't that beautiful? Nothing, not even physical pain, is happening to you. Once you realize this, you will stop identifying with the false I and experience a great less suffering, fear, and contraction. Be in the present moment and act from feeling rather than from thought or emotions. Because living this way creates an incredible power and an immense of joy. Babies and animals naturally live this way. And they are not yet capable of creating thoughts that lead to emotions, beliefs, and stories. The awakened adult human has the potential to act without thought through living their truth. They have learned the truth of what they truly are, and they have tamed the mind and no longer give the power to the control of perceiving. The story is detached from the pure raw experience. So the awakened adult can then use the mind to serve awareness instead of allowing the mind to use you, the awareness, to serve the agenda of the false I. You will, through this process, even develop a new relationship to the suffering, because you will notice that suffering is a useful tool and feedback mechanism that shows you where you are not yet free to your truth. But it does provide circumstance and opportunity for you to become more free. This is why it's so beautiful. We're not trying to kill off the ego. We're not trying to ignore the false I. We're here to embrace it fully and understanding the difference between the mind and pure awareness. The mind is simply a tool or a mechanism used by the real you to facilitate perception or awareness. The mind is a screen that awareness uses to experience sensations. The mind is an object in duality, so objects in the mind can be good or bad, etc. So awareness is in unity. So it cannot be grounded or labeled. It simply is. The mind is like your sense receptors that facilitate biomechanics, mechanisms that actually happen in the brain to facilitate awareness. Your mind is a sensory mechanism that awareness uses to perceive the universe in the same way that the mind uses the body to facilitate sensations such as hot and cold. So, dear one, don't get me wrong, suffering is Suffering is not a result of having bad thoughts. So changing your thoughts will not eliminate suffering. The suffering originates because of your false self, which is at the center of those thoughts that are being fed. And it doesn't even exist, truly. Everything your mind does not, your mind does not eliminate suffering and create more joy in your life is useless. The mind is here to give rise to duality, not to show you who you truly are. That's not the job of the mind. These can never sustain results. Thus, every action of the mind results in an opposite and a same reaction. At best, it can create a psychological drug, inflating perception. So, can you understand that it's so important to know the difference between a psychological inflation and true transformation? Nothing that you perceive is actually happening to you. Remembering that the false I is simply a fictional character that doesn't exist, you will experience less suffering. I say this with extreme conviction. The mind is forcing the world to be the way you want it to be, and this creates a lot of suffering. Awareness is the act of experience itself, without any label or reaction to the label or the content of that which is being experienced. The object on the screen itself can never affect awareness itself. So nothing that happens in duality in this world can ever affect you. The number one obstacle to embodying your awakening and reasons to fall asleep is resistance. That which you resist has control over you. It is an indication of where you are still the victor or in the victim role. So use the knowledge to transcend and experience instead of avoiding it. If you skip steps, you will hold yourself back. Due to your subconscious mind, it will start sabotaging you. So you need a good base for all of the steps, reinforcing your false identification. The awakening itself will facilitate the surrendering of the content of your life. The understanding of it is not the same as embodying it. You still have to move through the experience yourself first. Very important. You need to heal the personality first. So sometimes the best way to move yourself past the strong attachment of something is to actually get it. To actually firsthand experience it. Immersively, intensively, diligently. Because the achievement of the goal could indicate how little you truly want it. You do not need to master something in order to get it. This is important. Trust is an important factor here too, because trusting that you are taken care of, trusting that you are eternal, trusting the things that are not self and knowing them to be not self, to be false. Ego, mind, personality is the false you or the not self. So if you feel you lost yourself, you are losing the damaging beliefs, this is a good thing. You can never lose the true you. Your organism can modify its code as it evolves through the process of life. The core of spiritual growth, to understand the false I, that you are the act of perceiving. Awakening is not always the same as liberation. Don't confuse these two as they intertwine in a lot of teachings. This usually occurs when the slow embodiment of enlightenment, liberation occurs. So overcoming the residue of the conditioning of the false I. One of the most common reasons why we identify with the false I is action. When you are doing things, it seems that you are the one doing it. Language adds to this misconception and illusion too, quite a lot. I type this word, I eat the food, I am angry. These are all things that you identify your truth as with your false self. You are not the doer, dear one. You are the experiencing the doing. When looking at a flower, you are not seeing a flower. You are having a sensual perception of a flower via the mind-body complex known as Carla. But I am not Carla. I am the awareness that got the visual perception via the mind-body complex presented to you by Carla. It is important to break the habit of thinking things happening to you and that you are doing things. Get into the habit of asking, who is this happening to? The most correct answer? Nobody. Biological containers facilitating perception and awareness as an integrated whole, not as a whole of its parts, as some see it as a machine. Vehicles with a present program to feed perception to the one awareness. When you identify with the false self through action, being a seeker can actually take you away from that which you are seeking. This could lead to an amplified way of suffering due to awareness, but while being stuck in the belief of the false self. Sound familiar? The concept I am seeking identifies with the false self, but also amplifies that you have not yet found what you are seeking. You are already looking from that, what you are seeking for.